Hey guys, welcome back. So today we are doing an R53 buyer's guide. We're going over reliability, what to look for when you're buying, pros of the R53, expected problems, maintenance, etc. So let's get into it. Starting off strong with reliability, I would say that these cars are reliable, but they do need to be taken care of. If you're looking for a car that you can beat on and not change the oil, not care about it, that's a Toyota Camry, not a Mini Cooper. Personally, I do my oil changes every 2,500 to 3,000 miles with full synthetic oil, and it has kept mine very reliable. I've owned over a dozen R53s, and I swear this is a huge part of keeping them reliable. Also, checking your oil in between oil changes. Check it when you're at the gas station filling up. It's a little bit inconvenient, but you are choosing this car that is known to not only blow by oil, but also just leaks oil. And as much as you want to fix all the leaks, they are over 20 years old, so they're going to leak. It is what it is. Another note is if an issue comes up, your best bet is to take care of it immediately. I feel like these car systems are very sensitive, and it's just common for one issue to create another issue, and you're getting a snowball effect. So, if a problem arises, try to deal with that immediately rather than ignore it and keep driving on it because it's only going to make it worse. With that being said, this is a 20-year-old vehicle you're looking at, so no matter what car brand you're going to have, there is going to be issues, and you got to be real about that. Issues are going to come up. You can't guarantee any type of reliability, but this is my experience with them. I've seen banter that the 0203 is less reliable than an 0506. I strongly disagree with this. I have had zero reliability difference with my 02 and 03s as I have with my 05, 06s. I've had every single year of an R53, including a pre and post and in the middle of the facelift 2004s. There's been no difference in reliability. The biggest thing that you'll notice is the 05 and 06 have an updated tune, so you have a little more torque in the lower end of your RPMs, so it will feel faster. Is it theoretically faster? No, not necessarily overall in top speed and things like that, but it will feel faster on the street. They are a little more enjoyable, in my opinion, on the street to drive. If you are going to look at an R53 to buy, here are some things I would suggest looking for immediately if you are checking one out. Number one is going to be bad control arm bushings. This is a pretty easy thing to check. Simply push your foot on the front of the tire, and if that wheel starts pushing forwards and backwards, you probably don't want this one. Control arms are a big job. Even if you do it yourself, this is kind of a pain. But to be fair, these cars are 20 years and older, so it's not completely unexpected for bad control arm bushings to be a thing. Another common issue is the low speed fan stops working. It's really not the end of the world. Typically, the high speed fan just ends up kicking on and taking over and isn't a big deal. It just means that the fans are going to be louder and that it's always going to kick on the high speed fan. But if that bothers you, now you know what to look for. When the fans come on, your high speed, louder fan will be on more often than not. A few other things I would say to look out for is sloppy shift cables, oil leaks coming from the filter housing and cooler, potentially even from the oil pump area. Make sure this car's had a supercharger service done. If it hasn't, get to that immediately. It's a big job, but it needs to be done around 100,000 miles. If you are in a area that rusts, you are going to find rust commonly around the taillights and at the lower part of the door. Take a look for that, especially if it's near the taillight. It's a big job, and if you can see it on the outside, it's always worse behind. And I don't know how to express this well enough, but if you are looking at an R53 and you are not looking for a manual transmission, I would 100% avoid getting an R53. Um, the automatic trans in these cars are absolutely terrible. I personally had one that I bought with a bad transmission at 60,000 miles. The furthest I have seen one of these get to is about 70,000. I really would not, under any circumstance, suggest getting one of these. It's expensive to replace. The labor is super intensive or expensive if you are getting a shop to do it. I just wouldn't recommend it. Honestly, I'd look at a different car if you need an automatic car. So as far as maintenance and service intervals on that, I would recommend doing your oil changes with full synthetic oil every 3,000 miles. This engine bay gets hot. These cars burn oil. in my experience, this is just the best way to have some cheap insurance on reliability. Next up would be spark plugs, the wires, and the coil pack. I would only recommend doing an OEM coil pack and ideally OEM wires every 50,000. I've seen way too many problems with aftermarket coil packs and wires that I just absolutely do not touch them. I'm fine with changing up the spark plugs, but the wires and the coil packs, I try to avoid like the plague. So the first supercharger service I would recommend doing at 100,000. After that, personally, I would shorten mine to somewhere between 50 and 80,000 miles, but that's just my personal preference. Um, with that, I am going to replace all the fluids, go ahead and do the coolant at that time. Trans fluid, you're going to do that with your clutch. I don't think it needs to be done any sooner than that. I think that's a little excessive. Brake fluid, do that as needed. It really depends on how you're using the car. Are you taking the car to the track? Are you driving it hard? You're going to need to change your brake fluid more often. If you're just casually driving on the street, you're probably fine. I think that these cars are super fun. They get decent MPGs. They can fit a lot in them. They're small and convenient for parking, especially if you live in a city. The supercharger one, obviously the best part. Sick, right? I mean, hello. So cool. Not many cars are supercharged these days. I think that it's absolutely awesome. Super cool, super classic. Love these cars. I'm a huge fan. Overall, I would recommend this car to someone that truly understands that the age of the car on its own is going to bring problems, and these are a little more high maintenance than a 20-year-old Toyota. I'm not going to lie and say that they're equally as reliable. They definitely aren't, but they are pretty reliable. You just have to be on top of them. But you still want something fun to drive, and it's probably a lot more fun to drive a Mini Cooper than a Toyota Camry. Biggest takeaway from this needs to be on top of your maintenance. Do not let your maintenance slip. These cars are wonderful. I love them. I have owned over a dozen R53s, and I've owned one of every generation Mini Cooper. They're great. Of course, we could dive more into this video and get into tons of details of what I would expect you to need to replace, etc. But I just wanted to give a basic overview of what to expect with an R53. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below and ask. I'm happy to help. I have tons of videos on these cars, and hopefully those will help you out as well. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out, and I'll catch you in the next one.